Great, welcome to new podcast, The Asylum, with Borna Sor for Total Croatia News. Today with us is Marko Rakar. Now, Marko Rakar is a lot of things. He's a secretary of the International Political Consultant Agency. Is that international? Association, I'm sorry. Yes. And the ex-president of the European version of it as well. And an IT expert in some sense, but in Croatia he's mostly known for to be a person that governments are kind of afraid of, because he's the man who likes to dwell and explore and find out about the systematic problems that we're having. So some of the topics we'll be talking about, Mark will be allegedly connected with them, but let's call him an expert on those topics. Topics like the number of the system, the number of the Croatian voters that came out, the registry of the Croatian the war veterans. A lot of interesting stuff we'll be discussing in this podcast. So before everything, Marko, welcome. Thank you for having us in your office. It's a change of scenery.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, let's start off first with just a little bit of explanation of, how did you come here? How did you ended up being a person that is kind of well known, but nobody really knows what you're doing?
Yes. So, at some point in my life, let's say it's 14, 15 years ago, I decided that I'm unhappy with my government and I want to replace it.
Well, you were too scared to use Molotov cocktails? Or no, that was too basic?
No. Every single one of them. So, it's unrealistic to believe that they will be all on the same place at the same time.
Okay.
So there is a lot of effort. So it's easier to just replace the government and put some new, better people in power. So, and I was thinking of, how I'm going to do that. And, you can, I have, of course, my personal political leaning, political position, but I don't really care which government is in power. I just want to have a better government. So if I have a better government,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter if it's left or right.
Okay.
My opinion is that Croatia is in a place where we are way off the point where we can discuss if we should solve this particular problem in a leftist way or a right-wing or conservative way. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of very basic problems which we have to solve, and there is only one way to solve them. So when we come to the point to argue if this is the left or the right way of solving it, we should, all of us should be happy. So
it's like deciding what kind of a color of the wall we're gonna put, but we didn't even build the grounds for the house.
There is no socialist or capitalist way of collecting the garbage. There is a garbage truck, and it's always the same. We can discuss a lot of details, but in general, especially in Croatia, we have a lot of problems which we have to solve before we start dividing ourselves on left, right, classical divisions. So
you would agree with people who say that Croatia as a young democracy still doesn't have its institutions yet properly working?
Absolutely. I would go even a step further, and I would say that we are still a socialist country because we have never passed the transition properly. If you compare Croatia versus the other former Eastern Bloc countries, you will see that a lot of steps which happened in Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, we have not come to that point yet. So
the transition, if we you want to deal with transitional problems as Croatia is trying to deal with them, you decided not to join actively into politics. You decided to go the other way around.
Yeah, I decided that I want to do. So I'm not. I'm a political animal, like a lot of people involved in politics. But I don't see myself as a politician. So I don't have any particular wish to be a politician, because I don't see the point in being a politician, because they have a fairly low pay, so they are not paid well, and they are arguing about things on which I don't want to spend my time on at all. And there is a lot of different things which you can do to influence the process and not be a part of it, or at least not be in a spotlight of it. So,
okay, but before we continue on the ways that you tried to change the problems of the state, but you were involved a little bit in the political process as such. Being a political consultant, you were a part of some campaigns happening in the country, right?
Yes. So I was working on a campaign for Social Democrats in 2007 national. I worked against Social Democrats in 2009 on Zagreb municipal elections. I worked again for Social Democrats in 2010 for President Ivo Josipovic. I was, let's say, the executive arm of his campaign at that time. I was working against Social Democrats in 2011. I started working for Social Democrats in 2012. I was, let's say, laid off somewhere in 2014, and now I worked again for Social Democrats in 2015, and then after that, I think I was not involved in any other elections since 2000.
Okay, can I ask you something? In the United States, United Kingdom, there's two parties, so it's a normal thing to say, like, I was working for Democrats and then not for Democrats, but to say Social Democrats in Croatia with so many different parties, but Social Democrats and the run for the Zagreb mayor, you chose those campaigns because you want to pick people who can win, or you pick people who you can personally support? Because it's interesting, because it seems to me you were very much involved then, it means, in political processes. For somebody who claims that politicians are, well, not all that powerful in that sense.
I wouldn't say they are not all that powerful. I would say that a job of a politician is not very attractive to me. So, so we have to make a clear division between me and the politician. Of course, they are powerful, or they think they are powerful. So that's also.
And of all those campaigns, which one do you remember the most, in a sense of what do you think was the most interesting of all those campaigns?
Well, I would say that so in 2009 I was running campaign for Josip Kregar. At that time he was dean of faculty of law in University of Zagreb, and he was running against Milan Bandic, who is still mayor of Zagreb.
No, 16 years old. 16 years now?
Yes, something like that. Yeah. 16, 17, 18. Nobody's counting anymore.
So Kim Jong-un will come for education, how to stay in power. Definitely.
Yes. So, and because in my opinion, Milan Bandic is running this city in a very, very bad, crony, corrupt manner, I wanted to support someone who has an actual chance of winning him.
And deposing you from the throne.
Yes. So I worked for Josip Kregar. So at that time in 2009, I mean, it has to be understood that Milan Bandic was at the peak of his power, and nobody really expected of us to remove him from the office. But I very often say that there is an option that you can influence one person, in a significant manner, or you can influence 1,000 people by just a little bit. So my opinion is that I want to move a lot of people just a little bit every day, because in the end, because it's a long race, all of us will end up on a finish line.
So slowly changing the public opinion.
Yes. Or as the Chinese said or did, they had a thing called the death of 1,000 cuts. So they had a form of torture where they would cut their prisoner 1,000 times, and not a single cut would be lethal by itself, but 1,000 of them would collapse the man on the floor and he would die. So
it's interesting because the last elections, Bandic also won, but the majority of people in the polls said that they don't think Zagreb is going the right way. So Zagreb is Bandic is around 900 cuts now. He's not yet at 1,000 cuts.
I mean, some of the very first, which show that he is vulnerable as a mayor, was done by Josip Kregar campaign and me as a person running it. So I have tried to show to everybody that there is a way to replace him as a mayor. I mean, unfortunately, so just to brag a little bit, the results we made in 2009 have not been repeated yet. So our
how close was it?
Well, the guys in the 2017 campaign were almost as high as we were in 2009, but that was like 10 years ago. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, by now we shouldn't be even talking about Milan Bandic. But
do you think, we're going to come back later to all the specific knowledge that you have, but do you think that there are certain people that cannot be defeated in our political system in a sense that they have a support from their network? I mean, I think Bandic is a very good example of somebody who has the math all figured out in a sense of can public opinion really change as long as the people don't go out and vote, and the people who go out and vote already have this preconception of who they're going to vote for?
Well, you have to steer public opinion in a way that it would sound and it would be interesting for people to go out and vote. So if we have a situation where everybody is working and talking about bad politics, voters will not be motivated to go out on a Sunday to cast their vote. So it's a failure of politicians running, it's a failure of campaign managers, and it's a failure of all the marketing created in a campaign, which eventually lead to a result where we get very few people coming to the polls on Sunday morning.
Is that the biggest problem? I mean, you were a part of political campaigns around the world,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken. So you've been internationally on the East and West, everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want, you don't want to mention necessarily, but is there a specific difference between why there's an apathy here, or is apathy in Croatia bigger than, let's say, in some other places? Do you have a different approach when you know that the turnout will be 80% or 70%, and in Croatia where you're hoping that it will be 50%?
Well, to a point, Croatia is a, let's say, stable Western democracy up to a point. In many other ways we are still wild west, but we belong to the Western circle of countries by definition. Mm-hmm. That's just the fact. Regardless if we behave like we are in the Western circle or not, we feel, and especially now, being in a NATO, being in EU, that we are, member of a big boys club, and we vote accordingly. So, and again, there is also a story. We didn't have a proper transition period from the socialist state we had before, and there are a lot of factors. So, I would say Croatia is of course different from every other country, but it's also the same as every other country. So it's just the way it is. So everywhere you go, if you go to neighboring Slovenia or you go to Bosnia or Serbia, and we can talk with all these people quite easily, you will see that in many ways they will behave like us. In many ways they will behave different from us.
But do you have? Is it harder in Croatia, being when you're in a campaign? Is it harder to spread your message, or is it harder to get people out to vote? Because I meet so many people who, as you said before, who think Croatia, the government is not doing a good job. They don't agree with the policies, but they don't go out and vote.
Well, they don't because in politics you have like 2 candidates or 4 candidates. It doesn't really matter. And you have to choose the lesser of all evils between the 4. And we as a nation, we have come to a point where we expect to get a perfect candidate. The one who will solve all of our problems in a day, if possible. So, and we are expecting that person, whether he is a man or a woman, to come and tell us something. We are waiting for Croatian
Prince
version
Charming.
of Prince Charming, Croatian version of Obama, but
Croatian
not black,
version of Obama.
and not maybe that tall, and
What would be a Croatian version of Obama then? What a good
I don't know how
that inspires.
When I see him, I will tell you, but
Okay.
I can tell you a lot of bad examples. So
Okay, but I just I don't want to drop this political apathy because I'm very interested in this. Did you figure out a way? Because apparently with Kregar you were close to winning elections in Zagreb when it comes to that. Do you have any recipe for getting people out to vote a little bit more than usual? Because I understand if you're promoting values on a certain topic, if you're promoting policies, if you're criticizing some specific politician, then you have argumentations and everything. But how do you address people who are like, yeah, but I don't want to go out and vote?
Well, you have to give them a message which they understand and they can relate to. So you have to play on their emotions up to a point. I mean, generally politics is when you put a politician on a CT scan or MRI, and then you start talking about politics with him, and then you will see there are certain areas of brain which will flare up as active. So, and basically the politics will use the same portions of the brain as sports, for example. So,
What, like getting ready for action? No,
Yeah.
excitement or
No. So sport or any competitive activity flares particular part of your brain. Politics works the same way. So the same portion of your brain which will force you to watch a soccer game on Sunday evening in a couple of weeks will be the one used for making a decision for whom you are going to vote on election day.
Luka Modric should be a Croatian Obama then.
I don't know
guess.
who that guy is.
You don't remember, you mean? Luka Modric, the...
No, sorry.
Okay.
I'm very bad with sport analogies. So.
But then the next question with that is, so that means that if it's more likely if you educate a voter to be a part of a team that he will go out and vote than if you educate him to be this neutral, emotionally disconnected person from the parties.
Well,
and
you
the
have to
political process.
offer something. So, if you have a politician, he has to offer authentic message. That's really, really hard to do because politicians, they think they know everything. So, basically you have to be a little bit crazy to be a politician because a lot of people, they don't know how to manage their own families. And then suddenly there is a guy who wants to run 500 million of them.
Okay,
So it's simply crazy. So, or in Croatia, because we are a smaller country, 4.2, 4.3 million of them. So you have to be a crazy to think that you cannot, solve a problem with a leaking toilet in your home, but you can run a country. So, it's a scale problem. So that's first problem. The second problem is that because they think they are so smart, because they can obviously run a country of 4 million, then they will start talking about complex things and, they're not going to talk about money anymore. They're going to talk about resources. They are going to change the vocabulary and dictionary to some, words which mean a lot and doesn't mean anything at the same time. And they are going to talk about.
Do you think they do that because they want to sound smarter, or because it's the easier way for them to hide that they have no matter to actually discuss about? No specific reform or policy. Do you think it's connected with the fact that you're trying to hide that you're doing nothing, or is it connected with the fact?
No, it's just a way of hiding. They ended up, behind the wheel, and they would like to scream, but they
Some
cannot.
techno babble, just
Yes,
nobody
or
understands that they can't drive. Okay.
If I talk this nonsense for long enough, you will stop questioning me anymore.
Okay, makes
this
sense.
kind of thing. So, you will very rarely find a politician who actually knows what he is doing, especially in Croatia. And they will tell you just about anything, just to stop talking to a journalist or a inquisitive voter or something. So it's a problem. But again, as a bottom line, my opinion is if you pinpoint topics which are really important to the voters, and voters, they can be low educated, high educated. They can have low income, high income. They can be rich, poor. They can be healthy or not. But deep down, all of them, they understand what's the problem with the country or with their environment in which they are living. So they understand the problem. They maybe don't understand what is needed to fix it, but they feel the...
What do you think is the problem? What do you think they think is the problem? You think they understand it's what? It's nepotism, corruption, the lack of...
Yeah, talking about Croatia.
Transparent reform, yeah. Transparent...
well, I would say that
politics.
Croats in general, we are very, very polite people. So we are going to think really, really bad about something. But when we start talking to each other, then we are going to be extremely polite. So... we are going to pretend, there is an elephant in this room, but we are not going to mention it because it maybe doesn't smell nice or, we don't really want to address it. We think that maybe if we start talking about the elephant in a room, you might be offended for some reason.
Do you think that is because people are afraid to offend other people because do you think it comes from mentality of somebody who's afraid what can happen if he speaks out, or from somebody who's just doesn't want to create problems?
I would say that the part of the problem is maybe because if we start talking about the problem, then we might discover that I don't know anything about the problem, or I don't understand it, or that you don't understand it, or that we don't even know that there is a problem which needs to be solved. So people will talk many things among each other, but they will try not to offend each other by excessive knowledge or excessive ignorance. So that's at least part of the problem. The second part is probably our, national indecision capability. So we are, for some reason, even when we are faced with a problem and we understand that, there is a train coming in our way and, well, maybe it's a train, maybe it's not a train. So maybe it will stop in time and it will not. So we are going to discuss a lot and we are not going to move ourselves from the tracks. So, but when the train comes and kills a lot of people, then we will react in some way. So, there was this explosion and something happened, and we have to do something to fix it.
That's very interesting because it basically, I heard this type of argumentation before. Not all of it, but in a sense, people connect it with EU in a sense that Croatian government, Croatian politicians, and Croatian population always prefers foreign institutions than to Croatian institutions, and it was always considered because we have lack of faith. But maybe it's
also
a
part of education, I would say, because a lot of us still have been educated in a former country.
But the former country insisted that the source of power is in the country. But now we live in a time
but we were educated, among other things, we were educated that there are enemies within and enemies from the outside. That was, the dogma in socialist time. When we moved from socialist state to a capitalist state, we have replaced the enemy with the goals. So our former goal was, way back we had enemies, and then in the 90s we decided our goal is to join NATO, to join EU, and so on. So that was something external. Something which we really cannot influence that much because somebody else is deciding if this is a moment when we will join or not. And we would run towards that goal. And suddenly, we joined NATO 2010, I think, or so, and EU in 2013, and then suddenly we have reached our goal, and we
we're
don't
done.
know. What happens when you fulfill all your dreams while you are 30 and you have like 40, 50 years of your life ahead of you? So suddenly
You start drinking heavily.
Taking drugs.
And that's what Croatians are doing now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. So we always wanted to have someone from the outside, to tell us what to do.
Do you think? But some people say that is because we were raised like that, or there's the mentality. But some other will mention that somebody's actually profiting on that.
There's always someone profiting.
But profiting in a sense, some people enjoy the fact that there's not enough people going out and voting and being, political apathy spreading.
Yes, that's an invisible hand of the market. So,
yeah.
If not enough people are, in an election race, if you have highly motivated voters for your group, you really want that the other group of voters is not very motivated to come and vote. So you will do whatever you can to demotivate them even more. So when Sunday morning comes in May for local elections, it's a good sunny day and we should go and grill something instead of spending 20 minutes and voting for our next 5 years. So, do you think? I know that in Croatia we vote on Sunday. In the United States they vote on Tuesday, right? Yes.
Is there any analysis showing that it is connected with the turnout of the voters? The fact that is it on a working day or not a working day, or is it just a tradition and doesn't really change?
Well, the turnout in the US is way lower than we have in Europe. In Europe, it's customary to have a election day on Sundays.
Sundays, so everybody's
except
free?
I think in the UK they also have weekday, but all other countries have. I think in all countries where I participated, except the US, elections were on Sundays, always on Sundays.
So yeah, allows people to go out and vote. Now let's connect this with a little bit of what you do besides this. So we have political campaigns, but they're changing. It wasn't. What was political campaigning? What was political consulting 15 years ago and today? I think changed a lot. To that point, that right now. The most famous, of course, being Cambridge Analytica. In a sense, it's pop news. It's everywhere. Everybody knows kind of about it. So now we live in a world where, what is it? IT, big data, digital knowledge, all of those things are now not just machine learning. Yeah, no. They're all now a part of political campaigning today.
Yes, absolutely.
Up to what point? Even more than we are aware of.
You really don't want to know.
I want to know. Come on, that's why we're having a podcast. We want to scare us. Make children cry.
No, in a fully digital world, and our world is fully digital. It's way more digital than people think. Everything is calculated. Everything is added or subtracted, and so on. And the cost of saving the data is very, very low, or it doesn't exist at all. That means that you could let's go somewhere else outside of politics for a minute. So if you in your home you have a electricity meter because utility company is calculating how much electricity you have spent so they can send you a bill.
Yeah, they always ask me. I always check it myself. It's unbelievable how much they trust me. But yeah, I always give them a right number. But
eventually they will show up and
they
will double check. So don't worry about it. But so they do it like once a month, or if you are bigger electricity consumer, then they will check it once a month. If you are smaller, like a household, then they will check it once in 6 months or so. But so it's an analog way of checking because they have to send a man who will check the meter and that's it. And then you have devices like I have on my wall, which is connected non-stop to the internet and to my electricity network in my office. And I can learn at any point in time what is the actual consumption of my office for this month or this very moment. And when you have a digital device like that, it doesn't really matter if you measure consumption once a month, how much kilowatts I have spent in the last 30 days, or you measure that 6,000 times in a second or in a minute or something. And when you start measuring it 6,000 times a minute, then you have another option. If you recall like a war movies or something, then you will see they have a submarine and there will be a guy with headphones and he will listen to the sounds in the sea and he will say, 12 o'clock we have a I don't know, Typhoon class submarine, Russian submarine, and this particular screw on that particular submarine means that this is Typhoon submarine number 16. So what this device can do as well is it can calculate whether your lights are on or off, whether you are watching TV or not, whether you are cooking something, or to make it a little bit more scary, whether you grow marijuana in your basement or not. Because lamps for growing marijuana,
we have a specific.
They have a specific signature, so they can actually check it.
So basically, anything electric in my house can be just detected with that right now.
Yes.
Basically, what you're saying, if that works on basic electricity.
Yes, if it can work on a toaster, I assure you, it works on a voter as well.
Okay,
it's not a problem. So I have done a project for a retail company. So there is a thing called shopping anthropology. It's a thing, actual.
Okay. So what does it mean, shopping anthropology?
That means that they will hire you to optimize the layout of the store.
Oh, okay.
So I want
when
you enter the Konzum or Interspar or somewhere else, that you spend maximum possible amount of time in the shop
walking
and
around
spend as much money as possible in the store. So, for example, that's one of the most famous examples is that why you have diapers and beer near each other.
Because dad wants to buy the beer.
Yes, and mom is watching the children, and he will say, you go to the shop and buy diapers. And men, as we are, we will go and see the diapers, and then we say, whoa, beer, and buy a box of beer and diapers. So shopping anthropologists will study, the behavior of clients in a shop, what they are buying, in which part of the store they are spending some time, whether the layout of the shelves is correct, whether you will actually achieve your sales results which you are aiming for, and so on. So
the store is doing that with prices, with placement, with the colors.
Yes, and then
all of that works on politicians
then
as well?
We come to the digital age, because this is like old stuff. We have stores for hundreds of years, and then you come with your phone in a store, and your phone is actively looking for a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth signal all the time, because he wants to connect to your car, to your office, to your home,
it's
and
his
so on.
biological instinct.
Yes, I usually when I talk about phones, that it's a tracking device which can be used to communicate with other people. So what you do, you install a device in a store, and then you are counting all the phones which are in the building, and you can actually calculate where each phone is at particular time. We can learn when you enter the store which aisles you went through, and we can calculate on which cash register you exited the shop.
So the next time I walk into my store, they already know, it's Borna. Oh, he'll go see the bread first, and then he'll check with the paprika stuff.
Not only that, we can print you a coupon.
Specifically for me.
Specifically, we already know that you have spent way too much time around beer or hard liquor or chocolate, and you will get a coupon for
I do spend too much time next to the chocolate. That is true. That is true. Constantly checking the prices. Is it good enough? Maybe we should buy this.
So what we did is, we have decided to identify. We were looking through gigabytes and gigabytes of data, and then we said, well, as a proof of concept to the management of the retail chain, we said, well, we are going to identify you, this particular person. So we have calculated that this person will show up on Tuesday between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. and he will buy at least 3 of these products. And we will wait for him on a cash register, and we will look. We don't know who that guy is, but just by looking at his basket, we will recognize him. So we went to a store on Tuesday in the morning, and nobody believed that it's actually possible to identify a man just by his basket. But in the end, we have identified the man because he showed up at exactly same time with exactly the articles which we calculated that he will buy that day in a shop, plus some other stuff. And then we had to be sure that that's him. So we asked him, is it true that you are taking summer vacations in Senj? And some other things, and he said, "Well, how do you know that?"
Oh my
God. And it became a little bit creepy after that.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the proof of concept was there.
The Secret Service waiting for you in the store. But
there is no point.
Can we fight it by acting completely random and erratic?
Completely random.
No, but if I do it on purpose, I go into the store every day and I purposely buy stuff, crazy stuff. I don't need that stuff. Like I buy 10
then I can calculate which crazy item
how crazy am I going this day?
Next.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
So let's put that in political terms, right?
Okay.
So it's happening now. Well, the whole world is talking about it in a sense for United States. It's been a big topic, but it's been happening prior to this last elections. It's been happening slowly around the world.
But again, so we are monitoring what you are doing on the internet. So we noticed that, for example, you went to see the website with the luxury cars. So we know that just based on your interest in luxury cars, you probably have a little bit higher income than some other people. If you visited, I don't know, like lifestyle or home improvement type of site, then we might decide that, well, you have a higher pay, you have a little bit more money, but you're also a female because you are interested in stuff in which ladies are interested in mostly.
Those type of, let's say, preconceptions or prejudice, they work.
Oh yes,
they work.
Absolutely work. They work every time. You can pretend that they don't. You can try to fool them, but in the end, we will get you. So
that's interesting, because but it means that.
I mean, just to be, it's all of this is very general in terms. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we will identify Borna or Marko,
person that makes sense.
But we'll identify a group in which you belong. So we'll identify people. So if we have a political message, we are going to frame a different message for men versus women, because women tend to react differently. So you need to show them a little message which is tailored for them.
Okay, but and what gender, age, I guess, social status,
you can calculate
all different stuff goes into groups. But is it? My question is this about that: how do you gather data? I guess it's all legal. Let's say it's all legal when it comes to being a professional company that's helping a politician win the election. how do you get that info? Do people give them themselves not even knowing, or is it bought? Do people buy it from social networks?
We already know the groups. So
you know the groups, but how do you know if I'm a part of the group? So I have to I have to allow my personal data, let's say it like that, to be used, and I'm not even aware.
Well,
of it's being used.
I'm not going to advertise women-related religious content on a pages of a men's sports magazine. So it doesn't make sense. So every group of people tend to, attend particular kinds of events or read particular kinds of
that's how it goes.
Okay. Newspapers or watch particular TV show. So you will simply tailor the advertisements, the messaging, that particular message is shown to that group of people, and some other message will be shown to some other people.
Do you think
all of these things are very expensive, so they're not easy. Of course they're easy to do, but they take money and time and so
resources.
on. And to be honest, Croatian politicians, they don't really understand what it means. And very few of them or very few parties have the money to actually pay that kind of service. So our advertising and messaging is very rudimental. So
that's targeting on that kind of targeting is interesting. But what happens at the moment when they start to put us in, let's say, a bubble? I mean, bubbles are being created on social networks.
All the time.
The time. And now you put on that a political advertisement. Is it a bigger problem? Because if I buy a sport magazine, I'm buying a sport magazine. I'm aware I'm buying a sport magazine. Now, if a specific candidate wants to go for sport fans and he's being, he has an ad there, and the other candidate doesn't have it, I kind of feel that I'm not being cheated. But if I'm in this social network type of bubble where only one commercial is coming in, and it's not even being presented like it's a commercial, because it's now the modern targeting is hiding the fact that it's a political advertisement. It's kind of news story. It's basically promoting the news stories that they think fits me the best.
Yes.
So now it's not anymore advertising. Now it's media. It's kind of... it's easier to create a fake media today than to create that I will see to be honest and not to be just some fake advertisement, than to give me a real advert, a real ad.
Well, yes, but the next step is, the thing with political campaigns is that, political campaigns always have to be on the edge. So political, the things you are going to see in a political campaigns are the things you are going to see in mainstream years after, because there are no two political campaigns which are the same. So, once you created a tool to win a political race, you are not going to use it again. I mean, you can try, but it's going to be hard, and it usually doesn't work. So every campaign manager, every consultant who is doing campaigns will have to invent completely new ideas and new messages and new everything, every single time you create a campaign. You cannot take a campaign from 2009 and use it in 2018. You cannot take a Croatian campaign and use it in Poland. You cannot...
Do people try and fail?
Yeah, of course they do.
You mentioned Obama. Did somebody try that in a sense of change?
Everybody is trying.
Everybody's trying.
Everybody is trying because, they don't have really idea. But you have to learn from it, and you have to adopt it to the environment, to the context, to the story, to your candidate, to your voters, to many variables which you have. So, but what I wanted to say is what is happening today with Cambridge Analytica, and there are more evil companies, but you don't know who they are at the moment. But you will learn about them in a year or two or four.
After they take all my info and use it and abuse it.
Cambridge Analytica is just a very visible.
That's what I say. Just a pop reference.
It's a shiny tip of an iceberg, but you will see the same thing in the media very, very soon. That means that imagine again that web portal you are reading knows that you are a male, that you have you belong to some kind of highly educated middle class. Do you have interest in sports, and you are left-leaning politics-wise, and they will adjust the look and the tone of the articles to you because it will appeal to you.
Amazing.
And
so
when
it will be two different articles for two different people.
Artificial intelligence will rewrite the article for you who might be left-leaning versus me who might be right-leaning, or for someone else.
Oh, brave new world awaits us.
Yes,
that's amazing. But can you tell me your colleagues from the World or European International or the European Association of Political Consultants, is this something you discuss? Is it something that
after many drinks?
Yeah, are you afraid that this is gonna slowly create resentment, and that what you are usually doing is a normal job, but now people are being afraid of it? It's like rise of the Terminator, rise of the machines slowly. I mean, people would like.
It's always it's always a problem.
In a sense, I'm sorry, but just to give an example, before I always had an idea, it's this capitalistic idea of you pay to an agency, you pay to a consultant, he's going to give all his knowledge, all his resources, he's going to help you. But now with this algorithms and this type of specific targeting, it seems like governments are getting involved in this. I mean, they were probably before, but with this, they can get involved much easier.
Yeah, but when the government starts, we are like 4 years ahead of them. So
no, I know when it comes to private companies, but
they might, meddle with Cambridge Analytica now, but we are way past.
Good example are the American elections, because now the discussion is not just how it was done. The question is, and I don't even want to go into that topic, but this is what they've been discussing: is can a foreign power? I mean, United States is a big country, but let's take smaller countries that are were always under either scrutiny or under direct or indirect influence by bigger states, bigger nations.
And it's quite obvious that Russians have meddled with U.S. elections in the same manner the U.S. was meddling with Russian elections.
Yeah, so basically
it happens. Yeah, it's
but now it's easier with the rise of technology and this kind of pinpointing of a targeted audience. Isn't it easier for let's say foreign interest to be?
Yes
and involved
no.
in your political
yes
election.
and no, but everybody is doing it. The difference is that they were caught.
They were caught, or they were successful.
Everybody is doing it. In Croatia, we are doing it.
Are we doing it to some other country? Is the Croatian government influencing foreign elections?
I would be happy to say that they do, but there's no
proof.
There is no proof.
Who would they be influencing? I don't think we have democracy around us. Probably, Slovenia is the only democratic country in the neighborhood that I think you can influence when it comes to just people going out and voting. I think that
I don't know. No, we don't do these kind of things. But Croatia has some interest. Major interest in, for example, Bosnia. So it's realistic to say that something is happening in Bosnia.
Okay, makes sense.
We know that they will have elections in September.
Oh my God, that reminds me. Do you think they will start an international criminal digital court in Hague?
We know, for example, the Russians are quite active in Bosnia. We know that Islamic radicals are active in Bosnia as well.
You mean online when it comes to
online? Yes.
Online, okay.
So it will be an interesting summer and autumn in Bosnia.
Oh my! The digital world never seemed so unstable.
There are people who say there is a war, and there are people who say there isn't a war. So
yeah.
So the digital war is raging.
But okay. Let us go back a little bit. All of this now being used normally, you're still working. At least you're still being a political consultant when it comes to being a part of the international association. But besides political elections and campaign, there was another way that you realized politics and change can be kind of implemented. Now, we're going to go into this alleged territory, right?
Okay.
So,
Maybe.
yeah, maybe. So,
I don't know what you're talking about.
okay, let me explain to you. So, in last couple of years, not couple of years, in last decade, there's been a huge argument in Croatia that the numbers in Croatia just don't add up. The numbers that we have in our systems just don't add up. So, and two main examples of that were given to the world, given to something that was, let's say, hidden on government computers or government servers. Hidden is it's a specific word, but let's say something that was not known to the public is now known. One is the registry of the Croatian voters that shows that there's more voters than citizens in Croatia.
Yes.
And the other one was the registry of the Croatian war veterans that showed the incredible, a huge number of Croatian war veterans also kind of that was not explained. So both of these things are connected to you, but let's not, let's say allegedly. But so
well, we know for a fact that the voter registry was. I mean, I can.
Okay, tell me. Well, yeah, admit this.
I did it.
Yeah, okay, you did it. Great. So, how did it happen?
Well, when we started talking, I told you that I wanted to replace the government, and I wanted, my thinking was that in order to have a better government, I need fair elections, and if I want to have a fair elections, then we need to do something. And there are no fair elections with completely clear rules on who can vote and who cannot vote, and we know that for a fact that we have more voters than citizens. I did a presentation, a lecture in.
What is could you give me a specific number? For a lot of people probably don't know.
Yeah, so I did a lecture in 2007, I believe, in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and I had a beautiful slide of island of Hvar, and there was a sentence, in Croatia there is 4,378,000 voters, and there are 4,334,000 citizens, and everybody started to laugh in the audience, and I asked them, what's wrong, and they said, well, you have more voters than citizens, and then I noticed that it's funny to them because it's illogical, but it's not funny for me at all. I didn't notice that problem because, I come from Croatia. It's quite normal to have more voters than citizens, so we don't consider that as a problem anymore. So I told them that, the Croatia is on its way to EU, and by the time we join, we have to harmonize all of our laws with the EU laws, including the laws of mathematics and physics. So hopefully by the time we join, we'll solve these problems as well. And that got me thinking. And I said, it's actually a good point. So we know that we have more voters than citizens. So if we calculate where the voter fraud is happening, where these excessive number of voters show up, then we might understand what's actually going on. And I wrote, at that time I had one of the more popular blogs in Croatia and the region, and I wrote, well, if I could get a copy of voters list, I would create a website. I have an idea how to solve this problem. And like a month or two afterwards, I received 2 CDs anonymously.
So some good soul helped you.
Yes, yeah. It just delivered the voters list for the entire country. And what they did, we created a small and very, very simple Google-like website where you could enter a address of a city or a village or a building where you live in, and the system will give you back the number of registered voters on that particular address. Or if you would give them a village, or if you give them a street, it will show you the list of all buildings and the number of registered voters on that particular address. And then when we launched that website, we discovered that there is village of Dusine.
Where is
So
that?
it's not even a village. It's like like couple of houses, on a border between Bosnia and Croatia, just above Vrgorac area. So it's
South, a little bit south.
Southern.
Dalmatian hinterlands.
Yes,
Hinterlands.
Dalmatia, but on the border itself. And at that time, I actually went to Dusine afterwards, and they didn't even have asphalt in that. Let's say it's a village. So one of the discoveries was that in the village of Dusine there is a building of with 400 people registered to live in Dusine, and this kind of villages, without asphalt on the border of nothing with nothing else, is you simply know, just by knowing the last name of a person, did he belong there or not, because
Everybody knows each other.
Everybody knows each other, and
400 people in one building.
In one building. So
it's like those clowns.
So I did a
who wanna get
tour
in a car.
So I did a tour with a satellite photo of Dusine, and showing up. There is a building with 400 people living. You have to just find it on this satellite photo, because building with 400 people have to be visible from space. And it's not, because there is nothing in Dusine remotely that large.
But okay, so how? How and why?
Well, we have found people living on addresses of police stations, public schools, doctors' offices, kindergartens, on non-existent addresses, and in a number of places.
But I can understand when people are moving, but this is somebody's put it on purpose. It can't be an error if somebody puts you that you live in a public school. It's not a human mistake. It's not a mistake. It's somebody. Somebody did it on purpose.
What happens is that there is a lot of people with Croatian citizenship who live in Bosnia or in Serbia or in some other places, and for some reason or the other, they want to have Croatian address as registered address of living. So, for example, you might work in Herzegovina, in Bosnia, but you might still keep Croatian residence, because if you do that, you work in Bosnia, but you are unemployed in Croatia. You don't get, maternity leave in Bosnia, but you get it in Croatia. You have a big house and a Mercedes in Ljubuški, but you qualify for social welfare in Croatia, which helps pay off your Mercedes Benz.
But it is against the law to say that you live in Croatia and you don't live in Croatia.
Well, it's against the law, but it's very, very hard to check.
No, I know that. But it is not. Because there are people who have dual citizenships or Croatian citizenships living in Bosnia, Herzegovina, or Serbia. But it is against the law to say that you live in Croatia and you don't live in Croatia, right?
Yes.
So, and for them, do they vote twice? Did somebody who lives in Serbia and votes in Serbia and then votes in Croatia as well?
Well,
we don't know that,
so
but we can imagine.
For example, I had a mayor of Vrgorac. We were on a round table, and he told in front of like 200, 300 people, he told, well, we do the election rallies for Croatian elections, and we do them in Ljubuški, which is in Bosnia. And I was just, looking at him, with my eyes wide open, completely in shock. And he goes, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? I said, because you just admitted a crime, because it's illegal to perform election activities for Croatian elections outside of Croatia. So it's, why would you do that, these kinds of things?
And just to make one point, clear, Croatian diaspora has normal right to vote and everything, but this is specifically the problem that we have with the number of voters inside the Republic of Croatia.
Yes, for example, in Vrgorac area, you have like 13,000 registered voters, and we know for a fact that in Vrgorac alone lives 7,000 people. So it's a huge mismatch. It happens that they have like 90 births per year, and they have like 40 kids in a classroom. So, where are missing 50
kids? Oh, yeah.
Yes, all these kinds of things and illogical details started showing up after we published that website.
So the website goes out, and what happens? What is the government doing to take care of the situation?
Government was in shock. They wanted to learn a little bit more from me, so they asked me politely to visit the police station and explain myself.
You mean that you're an expert, or who was the good soul sending you the CDs? Is that considered whistleblowing? Would that be considered that person that sent you CDs? Would that be considered, let's say, whistleblowing?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I mean, whistleblowing is normally associated with someone working in a company and exposing company's data. So whistleblowing
kind of strange for government.
For government, I mean, technically, yes.
Technically, sure.
Yeah, it fits the description.
Okay, so nothing specific. They were just upset that now everybody knows about it.
At that time. But suddenly everybody understood what's going on and why is it going on. And suddenly we discovered a lot of people from Bosnia who vote twice. Like they vote once in the morning in Ljubuške and then go to Croatia to vote once more. So we discovered the same thing. The other ethnicities are doing the same thing. So the Serbs would come for the very same reason to Croatia to vote again, and so on. So it was a widespread thing. So in the end,
but does that add for all the numbers, or I mean, is the biggest percentage of that extra number of voters because of outside voters, or there's inside of the borders as well? Is the majority of the fake voters are outside, or
yes?
Okay.
Yes. So
and some of them who are inside, it's just remains, not fixed issues, or also a scam.
Well, in the meantime, since 2009, there was a lot of changes happened in the law, the way we regulate voters list, the way we regulate place of residence. So, I mean, I would say, not a single drop is responsible for the flood, but I would say the mine was the last one, until everything exploded. So,
but now we have a lot of stuff. Now we have referendums for it's rolling in many different ways now. People are kind of fed up with the election.
Yes, but I mean the end result is that we have deleted like 800,000 people from the voters list, and I would say that deleting 20% of all people from the list is some kind of achievement.
That is amazing. That is a huge number. Will that also now have to change the way that we look at what number of people is needed for the referendums and all the other stuff? Because changing the number of the voters, I guess, changes other stuff as well.
Because the law about the referendum speaks about the number of voters
in a county.
In an area, and we to fix this problem, because it will take years and years. Once you give someone a right to a residence, it's not that easy to remove him from that residence. So it's a legal proceedings which can last for years and years. So what they did is they created we still have a lot of voters, but we have created a new category of voters which are registered and which can actually vote, and this number is 800,000 less than the number of voters in total. So it will take a lot of time to fix all of it, and nobody is really that interested to fix it. So
I bet. But one last question about this topic is this: would you support the Australian way, where people have to go and vote, and if they don't go and vote, they're gonna get deleted from the voting registry? Could that help to kind of clarify the exact number of voters in Croatia? You wouldn't agree with something like that?
Probably not.
Obligatory voting.
I mean, it's all about the legal framework and everything else. So it would probably, it's easy to say, well, we should do it in the same way like they do it in Australia or in, I don't know, Uruguay or, any country you can name, but
the famous Uruguay democracy, which
Yes.
is after Mujica quite famous lately. Yeah.
but in the end, it's not that simple. So we have some legal framework, we have some obligations to the EU, we have some transparency
That is true, yeah.
requirements, we have some democratic legacy which we have to respect and so on. So it would be nice, but it's not always possible.
Okay, and the next thing is now this alleged thing, because I'm very interested in that. This is something specific. It is something that, let's say, in European Union, the majority of the countries don't have this issue. It's a specific Croatian issue, the issue with the registry of war veterans. So what happened in Croatia is that it was through years and years, people started saying that the number of war veterans is too high, that it makes no sense.
Well, we know for a fact that after 1995, in war veteran ledger, we had like 350,000 people. And today we have 550,000 of them.
So there's 150,000 more,
200,000.
200,000 more
Yes.
war veterans.
With that kind of army, you could invade Moscow probably.
We could have gone all the way to Kamchatka probably.
Yes,
They
yes.
wouldn't stop us. And the reason for that, everybody was saying everybody is thinking is political corruption. Basically,
Absolutely,
getting
because
benefits.
War veterans, they get about 1.2 billion euros in benefits per year. They have, or they used to have some other rights, so that they could. Some of them had the right to import the car without paying taxes. If you were a war veteran, you would get some shares of public companies as a compensation for your war effort. At some point, we had a ridiculous rule that if you were a child of a war veteran, you could go to the university without entrance exam beforehand, and so on. So they get a lot of this benefits, and many of them haven't participated in the war at all.
That's the problem. I think
that
majority of people wouldn't have a problem with benefits per se, but with the people who are applying for them now.
Because some benefits were calculated based on the length of your stay in the army. For some people that they would say that you entered a particular unit like 6 months before it was actually formed, or that you
war invalid,
or
something like
or
that
you
wounded when I was not wounded.
Yes, and for some people, it's you had cases where they were listed as a part of the war-related units up to end of 1996, and all war stopped in August of 1995. So you could get additional year and a half of
serving in the
military and getting all the war benefits, even
the war was over.
Yeah, and not a single shot was fired in 18 months.
No, besides the fact that it's so disgusting and highly immoral, the fact that if you're a war veteran or a war invalid, now there's this guy or a person or a woman, doesn't matter, a person who's stealing away basically kind of your benefits. He's stealing and now to have 200,000, that's like huge numbers for countries like Croatia. It's like this huge parasite that you have on you.
Well, we can afford to have like 800,000 more voters. Why shouldn't we have 200,000 more?
Makes sense. And so everybody knows about this, but nobody knows exactly. And then somebody comes, gets the registry, and it gets published.
He or she,
exactly. It gets published.
Yes.
And the whole country was that day, I guess. First it was published, and then afterwards the government said, well, now we have to make it official, right?
Yes.
And after it was published, the government, under the pressure of the people, was trying to play it cool, so they made it official, and everybody could go and check.
Yes.
Who are the people, and
yes,
you can put in a name.
Basically, when you look at it, the functionality. Functionality of voters list, which I published, and the functionality of the official government's website doing the same thing is exactly the same. So it just has a Croatian coat of arms there, and that's it. So, but that's the only difference. So the function of the one side compared to the other is exactly the same. Similar thing happened with the war veterans. When you looked at the war veterans website when it was published, because it's not available anymore, you had an option to enter your name, and if you entered your name, you would get as a result your war path. It's basically a list of units and dates in which units you participated from which date to which date, or you could enter a name of the unit and a date, and it will show you all members of that unit on a particular day.
So it was easy to check if my neighbor is claiming he was in war. I check he wasn't.
So the later on the government copied that functionality as well. So basically the war veteran list on the official government website was exactly the same like it was on a war veterans illegal site, which was published.
What happened with it? What was the reactions? Because I remember one of the first reactions, people were looking for all those. For the people they already knew were not in war, but for some reason they wanted to see what the registry says.
When I tried to explain to foreigners, how important that is for Croatia, I would usually say that when Tito or Pope died, Večernji List printed one extra special edition of evening newspapers, and when I was arrested, they printed actually two. Special editions. So it was.
They were afraid because they didn't know what's going to happen.
Well,
it's 200,000 people. It's a very sensitive subject. It's war veterans, the most probably sensitive subject in Croatia.
It was highly. I was arrested at the time, so
already because they wanted to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah, the government already had some experiences with me, and they said, if it's politics and database and internet, then there is only one guy in the country
who could get all this knowledge about the system.
So I was like a safe bet. We are going to.
But nothing happened. In a sense, they
no. I was. Yes and no. A lot of things happened. So I was held for questioning for almost 10 days. Because of the threats, me and my family were under police protection for like month and a half or maybe more.
What was the propaganda? That only an enemy of a state would like to put that out? Because it was the idea that it's going to put in harm's way.
Yes. The Serbs will arrest half of our people. Okay. How are they going to cross the border? And, all these kinds of things. But since 2010 till today,
nothing.
Nobody was actually arrested because of it.
But what happened with the, let's say, fake war veterans? Did anything happen?
Well, there was a lot of procedures. A lot of reports, and a lot of people went through the, court. A lot of people went to the courts to prove that either they were or they weren't part of the war effort. Some of them had to return the money to the government.
They did?
Yes, I would say. There were some. There is way less than 200,000. There was probably tens or maybe hundreds of them which had to return some money. But in the end, I think that particular moment was important because it helped the country to deal or to, become aware of what this problem means for the country. So everybody is now aware of, how many war veterans we have, and everybody really understands that we shouldn't have them. That everybody understands that this number is not
real number,
and it's not even close to the real number.
And is it still on? Is the registry still on? Is it open?
No.
The next government took it down.
The illegal one expired like 2 years after it was published, 2 or 3 years. I mean, I have visited that website once or twice in total. So, but I believe it was online for like 2 or 3 years maybe. Then the government made their own version of the website with exactly the same data. So, and that one was published until I believe December last year. So,
and then the government shut it down.
Government shut it down because they don't want
people checking in.
Yes.
And now, and I think we're coming close to the end of the interview. So I want to ask you on the end: do you think that media is good at picking up in what you do and following, or do you think that because the things that you do you think that the society reacts on them in a good, constructive way, or is going to take us a little bit more time to understand that what you do and the methods how you do it?
Well, I don't really
care
that much if they don't understand or not. So, among other things, I'm president of NGO called Vjetrenjača, Windmill. So,
okay.
And
like Don Quixote reference.
It's exactly Don Quixote reference, and I have been asked these questions a lot of times, and I said it's like a Don Quixote thing. So some people are simply born to do some things. So I'm not saying that what I do is particularly smart or particularly important, but you have to run against the windmills. So it's not a job, it's a calling.
It's a calling.
So, and it only makes sense to run against windmills because you know that this fight is asymmetric. It's me, if it's me or you or someone else against a much bigger abstract machine which you cannot comprehend how big it is. So you just have to fight it anyway because you will die, that's for sure, but still someone has to fight it because the country, not the government, who cares about the government, the country cannot be better without people wanting it to be better and doing small things which will improve everyday lives of your immediate environment, or if you are capable of a larger environment. So someone has to do it, and I believe that I'm doing it occasionally, when I have time and everything else, and I hope that I'm doing a good thing in the long run. So I understand that when you publish this kind of data, like the data I'm going to publish very soon, is it's not going to be accepted by everybody as a good thing, but in the long run, I think people will understand why I chose to do that and what good came out of it.
Can we get a sneak preview in a sense? Can we know what you have for us in store in the future?
Well, I have a copy of government's bank account.
Oh, interesting. So the government's transactions.
Yes.
Interesting. So you think it's gonna stir stuff up a little bit?
Oh, I know it will stir stuff.
Okay, so I guess then we have a deal for the next podcast. Just tell us when that's gonna be out. We can have a talk about that specifically.
You'll turn on the TV and
I will know. Okay. Thank you so much, Marko. And hopefully, we'll have a next podcast as soon as you make some more trouble. Thank you everybody for watching and listening to us. Subscribe and like, comment on the wonderful things Marko is doing, and hopefully I'll see you next week as well. Bye.
Bye.